Welcome to our February Good News Show here at the Spouse Angle. I am Andrea Scott.
And I'm Natalie Gross.
And we're so glad you're here. This is our third iteration of a Good News Show. We, as you may have watched in January, don't have a name for this yet. Well, we do now, but we didn't last month. We went to Instagram and Facebook and asked our followers what our names should be. This is a play off John Krasinski's Some Good News, and we obviously couldn't use that. And we wanted something a little more friendly for the MilSpouse community. So without further ado,
Drum roll.
Our name is Happiness Deployed.
Yay!
Yay!
Thanks to everyone who submitted names. We had so many great options to choose from, and then we did a bracket on Instagram and Facebook, and you had so many votes, so many responses. It was just great to get you guys all involved in this. It was really fun too for us to see what you guys liked. And so the final two were Bravo Zulu News, which means well done in military sort of terms, and Deploy Happiness. And we're doing Happiness Deployed, which is kind of a spin on that one. And that was given to us by Spouse Single follower Emily Whitcomb. So thank you, Emily. We really like it.
Thanks, Emily. So let's get into it. We have a few good news headlines this week, and then an awesome certified personal organizer guest, Lauren Weldon May, later in the show. So to start it off, we have some good news from the Army. One soldier's battle buddies and his drill sergeant helped him travel across the country last minute for the birth of his first biological son, and he got there within minutes to spare. Private Tyrell Hicks is a soldier assigned to Company D, 2nd Battalion, 10th Infantry Regiment, and he had just completed basic combat training when he got the call that his wife was going into labor. But airline tickets were skyrocketing and he didn't know if he would make it, but his company commander gave him emergency leave, and some fellow soldiers saw his predicament and gave him money for the flight. And even the pilot of the plane helped land the plane early, announcing over the intercom Hicks's news. And the soldier made it to his son's birth with 10 minutes to spare.
That's so amazing. I love that story. Well, and speaking of babies, expectant military moms in Phoenix were showered with gifts during the Waste Management Phoenix Open Golf Tournament earlier this month. This was an event hosted by Operation Shower. It's a nonprofit that hosts these types of events for service members or their spouses who are expecting babies really all across the country. This was the 9th year in Phoenix. Things did look a little different this time around because of the pandemic. So moms actually drove through to various checkpoints, and this parade of love is what they call it, to receive their gifts. And these included Amazon gift cards and essential baby items.
So some good news coming out of the craziness that's been happening at the Capitol. DC National Guardsman, who was deployed there, is also a Fairfax County, Virginia teacher. Dr. Jake Kohut was on the front lines protecting the Capitol when more than 20,000 National Guardsmen were deployed to DC for now President Joe Biden's inauguration. But the elementary school teacher was still teaching, even from his uniform, from his Humvee. He was teaching elementary school band lessons via Zoom while he was working at the Capitol. So he's at Canterbury Woods Elementary School in Virginia. Awesome work.
Yeah. Well, many military spouses and service members, as you know, look forward to military balls every year. One organization didn't want people to miss out, even though COVID is, of course, making it difficult to do things the traditional way. The Veteran Spouse Project will be hosting an all-virtual military ball called Honoring All on February 25th as a way to bring families together and also educate any civilians who want to participate about the traditions and rituals associated with military balls. Amy Upcraft is the founder and artistic director of Veteran Spouse Project. She said that understanding and deeply connecting with our military community is what we know how to do. COVID forced us to realize our programs were needed more than ever in the homes of our military families. And the Honoring All Ball is another way for us to provide a sense of comfort and connection to our community. And now we have a special guest for you guys. Her name is Lauren Weldon May. She's a certified personal organizer, like Andrea said earlier, and her video on Blue Star Family's website recently went pretty viral within the military community. So we are excited to have her on and share some good tips with you.
One of my biggest pet peeves is doing a job without the proper tools. So I wanted to have everything I needed right at my fingertips. So I made 6 handy little kits, divided up into various things that I have to do around the house every time we move, like cord wrangling and baby proofing. I keep them in these amazing Home Depot divided bins that have a handle and snap together so I can carry them all over the house for those PCS projects.
So excited to have you, Lauren, on our Good News Show and introduce you to military families and get some of their questions answered about how to best organize their space.
I'm really excited to be here, y'all. Thanks.
Absolutely.
So Lauren, what is your background? How do we know we can trust you in this? I mean, my house is pretty disorganized. How did you get into this?
So I started organizing when I was a little kid, literally. I asked to have my 8th birthday party at the Container Store. My mom said no. Joke's on her because I made a career out of it. I was just that kid. I always wanted to sort my toys by color or like sort my stuffed animals by size. I was really weird about it. And it kind of continued all through high school and college. And I was just kind of known for that. And I didn't think that I was going to do that as a career. I actually went to Pepperdine and got a business degree and started working in luxury hotels and event planning, which is obviously organizing adjacent. And eventually I just said, you know what, I just got to bite the bullet and start my own business. So I started my company in 2012. We're coming up on 10 years next year, which is insane.
So Lauren, what is your connection to the military community? We have a bunch of questions from our mil spouses on social media that we'll get into, but what is your connection there? And what is your favorite room to organize? I've got to know.
Oh, that's a good question. Number one, I'm married into the Army JAG family. So I met my husband McCain in 2014 and we got married in 2018. And now we have a little boy, Lucas. So we're raising little military kids that we're gonna, traipse all over. Gosh, okay, as far as organizing my favorite space, I'm a little bit obsessed with offices. I'm crazy about paperwork and paperwork organizing, which I know is kind of boring. It's not like the pretty closets or anything. I just really like it. And then since having my own child, he's 14 months old, playrooms are kind of far up there. I love a good playroom. And kids are honestly, y'all, better at organizing than people think. They're really good at maintaining if you set up a proper system.
I'm hiring you for my playroom. Well, first of all, I need a playroom.
We don't have one either. You're not alone. Our playroom is in the middle of our living room. And you have to make it work sometimes with military housing. We're in a very narrow, skinny townhouse. And so we don't have a play space either. We prioritize the office space over that.
I think that was actually one of our questions, right?
Actually, these are both of our questions.
Okay.
Y'all, these were by far our top 2 questions were the playroom and the kids' room. People are homeschooling. They're in small military housing. How do they do that? And our other question that we were asked a few times too is, we don't have room, let alone our dream house. How do we have our dream office or a sufficient office in our tight space? So whichever one you want to start with, but you couldn't have set that up better. Thanks.
That's perfect. That's too funny. We'll start with offices. So y'all don't be afraid to get unconventional. When I first started my company in 2012, I was in a very small apartment, did not have a full office. So, but I did have a pretty decent sized master closet. So I just put all my coats in my closet and I used my office, I put in the coat closet. So I had a nifty little IKEA card and I had all my paperwork in there and it was really pretty. I even hung a bulletin board in the coat closet itself. So it was really cute. And then whenever it was time to work, I just rolled my cart over to my kitchen table, got some work done and put it back at the end of the day.
You don't sit in the office, you bring it to the kitchen table.
Bring it to the kitchen table. I have, however, done a couple of offices like that, where you actually, if it's big enough and it's got like those ugly bifold doors, you can set it up where you can actually sit at that table at your desk in a closet, as long as you have a good lamp. That's the key on that. So I've done it that way too. And what was the other question? Play spaces.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So that's a doozy because it kind of depends on how old your kids are. I would say my number one recommendation though is when you're buying toy storage, make it be something that you wouldn't mind looking at. I am not a fan of like little kid stuff being in my living room. I have a little kid, so that's kind of hard to do. But what I did is I got these great baskets from Crate and Barrel. All his stuffed animals are in there. And when he's grown up and those stuffed animals live in his bed, I can roll blankets up and put them in there because it's something that I would want in my living room to begin with. So that's a big tip. And then just make sure that you're designating a little space so that when it's time to hang out at night, the kids have gone to bed, you can kind of put it away, get it out of sight, and it doesn't stress you out so much.
So is your house like always clean?
No, heavens no. People think that. It is always neat.
Okay.
It is not always clean. I despise doing dishes. That's my husband's job. But I love doing laundry, so you're not going to find big piles of laundry in my house. And then if I could figure out how to make my house dust itself, I could charge a lot more.
How do you keep it neat? Is it having less stuff to begin with? Is it just making time to do it? I would say my house is always clean, but it's not always neat.
That's too funny. I love it. We just need to trade skills then because I can't stand dusting and I can't stand doing dishes. I have to trick myself and I'm like, I can't have your glass of wine until you get those dishes done. So I'm not above a bribe. That's one thing. And I'm not above bribing kids either. Kids are great little helpers. Sometimes you just have to bust out the bribe. I would say one of the keys though is having a little bit less stuff. And I don't mean extreme minimalism. I have a lot of stuff. I like stuff on my walls. I like stuff out on surfaces. That's perfectly fine. It's more, what do you want to maintain? And so the way that I do that is I literally have 100 hangers. So that's 100 hangers for all my dresses, skirts, pants, everything. And when I buy something new, it's time to purge. One in, one out. So that helps a lot. And you can do that with things other than just clothes. When you're out of space, you're out of space and it's time to let something else go.
You talked about moving. I know a lot of our families are moving a lot, though maybe this year they haven't been. They're probably going to be gearing up to move again now that this pandemic's calming down. Do you have top tips for PCSing or moving or keeping your things safe when you move?
Oh man, that's a really good one. We are PCSing to Italy this summer. So I am already, it's February and I'm already gearing up for a June, July move. So one of my tips is just start early, start thinking through what you can get rid of that you just don't really care about. If you wouldn't buy it again in a store, maybe it's time to let that thing go. So anything that you can do to kind of lighten the load figuratively and physically, we don't want to bust those weight limits. And then the other thing is I love a good spreadsheet. I love a good checklist. So for me, I have a PCS checklist that I just copy over in Google Drive every single time we move. And it's got my checklist of make sure that you cancel the electric, cancel this, switch this over, check your cell phone records, things like that. So that I don't have to reinvent that wheel every 2 years. For us, this time we're moving in 11 months. We were 11 months in one place and now we're off overseas. So it was a quick one.
How have you managed your career as a military spouse? Like how have you, just kind of picked up and started over in each place you've moved? And I'm curious too, like with the pandemic, what does that look like for you right now?
Well, career-wise, I started my business years before I even met my husband. So I wasn't a military spouse. I wasn't a military girlfriend when I started. And so I kind of already had my feet under me by the time that we got married. I did move to Kansas City and had to completely start my career over, had to get all new clients, but I was lucky enough to get picked up by the Container Store, my favorite place of favorite places, as one of their contained home organizers. And so that really helps. So those connections that we make throughout the course of our career as organizers, those are huge, really important. Just building those relationships with other organizers who will bring you on projects. And then I will say, honestly, I think moving a business is harder than starting one. And you just kind of get used to it. This is part of the gig when you're a military spouse. And as far as the pandemic, I am doing a lot of virtual organizing sessions right now. You'd be surprised how much we can get done just on a Zoom call like this.
That's great.
Yeah.
So if we were going to meet with you and you were going to give us your top 3 tips or your favorite tips, this is the nugget for all our spouses out there. What are your favorite organizing tips, Lauren?
Okay. Number 1 is going to be set parameters for your stuff. So like I said, I have 100 clothes hangers. It kind of maintains itself then. I don't have to worry about it, and it doesn't fluctuate with wherever we move. I can fit 100 hangers in a tiny closet or a huge closet. So that's a parameter. You can do that with all kinds of other things, like this bookcase behind me. Once this bookcase is filled with books, it's time to head up to the free library and donate one. So that's a really big tip. Number 2 is get your paperwork in order. And by paperwork, I don't mean everything. That's a little daunting for some people. What I mean is your vital documents, your birth certificates, your social security cards, and stuff like that. I have a friend named Liz who actually started a great company called List and File. She creates these really neat PCS binders. Highly recommend. She's really, really great. And they're actually pretty. It's not something that you would hate looking at, when you have to dig around for that paperwork for your PCS. So that's number 2. And number 3 is get your kids involved. I think kids are an underutilized resource. They're great at sorting. They're really great at putting things back if you give them a really clearly defined space for them, like in a kindergarten classroom. They know exactly where those markers go, and they're responsible for putting them up. So I say just run your family and your house the same way, and it's a lot of little hands that can do a lot of stuff. Those are probably my top 3.
I'm like inspired to go home and clean now.
I love it. That's the goal. That's all we want, is just get that little fire under you to just do one small space at a time.
So Lauren, how can we connect with you? How can we hire you? Where do we find you?
So you can find me, my company is called Manifesto Home and Office, and you can find me at my website, it's laurenweldon.com. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me all through my website. There are links to all those things.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been, like Andrea said, inspiring.
I love it.
In the process of moving and unpacking, so that'll be fun. I'm going to try the 100 hangers thing for sure.
I love it. Get yourself nice hangers, invest in them, and it'll make you want to keep up with that same number of hangers.
I'm kind of scared to know how many hangers I have now, if I'm being honest with you.
It's a little scary when you first switch to that. It's honestly daunting, but you get to the point where it's so nice because you're not overwhelmed by all the stuff that you have.
Yeah.
I think we might have to do a little spouse angle competition and have people count their hangers. I'm really curious myself.
Yeah.
I bet I had over 200 before I switched to my really nice, like, black velvety hangers. My husband, I got him wooden hangers, and he has more hangers than I do. I let him have 150.
I love it.
To be fair, all their uniforms take up so much space.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Lauren, so much. This has been wonderful talking to you. Thanks for coming on our show.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Lauren. I hope you guys at home are just as excited to go organizing as we are. And that's all we have time for this week. So be sure to send us your good news stories. We want to hear them. We want to share them. Send them to us at podcast@thespouseangle.com.
Yeah, and we have more great content for you over at thespouseangle.com. And if you like the show today and want to see more content from us, hit that subscribe button on your YouTube page there, and we'll hope to see you next time.